Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. If you've ever wondered what it's really like to live behind bars, any episode of Ear Hustle will give you a pretty good idea. It's basically This American Life, but for the 2 million Americans who are incarcerated, primarily produced by people who are in prison. And for those of us currently on the outside of a correctional institution, it's fascinating listening.
They said, go into that cell and close the door behind you. Okay, I can deal with this. But no matter what I did in the cell, it was wrong. I mean, he would yell, he would scream, he threatened to kill me. I would sleep with my back to the wall and one eye open, if you would call what I did sleeping. And sometimes he would just get down out of the bed in the middle of the night screaming, acting like he's going to kill me. That 1 6-month period felt more like 60 years.
The moral of Ron's self-story: in prison, it matters who your cellmate is.
That's from an early episode of Ear Hustle. In its 15 seasons, it's covered a lot of ground. The photos people keep, what it's like to be in prison just for a DUI, what it's like being a dad in prison, spending a day in the yard, prison architecture, intimacy in prison, murals and music. I just listened to an episode about a guy with a life sentence for attempted murder and the 30 days leading up to an important re-sentencing hearing, or he might be able to get out. I won't spoil the ending. Again, all produced by the people who also sleep in San Quentin and cannot leave until their day comes. Ear Hustle hosts and co-founders Nigel Poor and Earlonne Woods join us to talk about what they've learned in those 15 seasons of podcasting from a prison and highlighting the live show that's coming to Nashville next week. We're reaching them in the KQED studios in the Bay Area today, but their tour starts Monday with a date here in Nashville. So you'll be here soon enough. Welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thank you. Definitely.
Good to be
Pleasure
here.
to be here. Yes.
Well, glad to have you. Before we get into what Ear Hustle is as a live show, which I'm sure is what's taking up most of your time in these days prepping, let's go deeper on the podcast's origins. Nigel, you were on the outside when you all started in 2017. Did you already know Earlonne somehow? How did you two team up? Okay.
No, so I started volunteering inside the prison in 2011 through an educational program called the Prison University Project. And I did that for about 3 semesters, and I got more and more interested in prison and what was happening there. And I started volunteering down at the Media Lab. Not all prisons have media labs, but San Quentin does, and it's where a newspaper's been published for decades. They make films in there. And Earlonne was...
I was
volunteering.
I wasn't volunteering, but yes, I was.
So the
there.
Media Lab existed already. The Media Lab
right.
was not something created because you all were getting a podcast rolling.
No. San Quentin has a long history of media. But so it's like 2012 is when I met Earlonne.
Right.
And so we got to know each other over maybe a 3 or 4 year period. And we started an audio program in there. There hadn't been a radio program, along with some other incarcerated guys. And we worked with KALW with Holly Kernan.
Yeah. Well, Holly Kernan,
now
if you listeners probably don't remember this, but you may have heard a month or two ago, Holly is going to be our new CEO starting like next week. So thank you for her.
Yes, definitely.
We call her the Queen of Radio.
Queen of Radio.
Yes.
The Queen
She's
of Radio. Well,
yeah, so make sure you call her that.
And listen, I didn't even plan to ask you about Holly Kernan, so I'm glad that you brought her up, and she gets a shout out, and we have many things for her to take on when she arrives in basically the same day you arrive. So I hope you'll see her next week. Let me go back to the first episode. Earlonne, you were still incarcerated back then, but what season was it that you were released?
I was released at the end of season 3. Actually, we I think we cut an episode.
Yep.
You know
we
what
had
I'm
to
saying?
cut out.
Yeah, so it was the end of season 3 when my life sentence was commuted by then Governor Brown.
Gotcha. Well, Nigel, you mentioned that there was a media lab already at San Quentin, and I even in setting up the show, I was trying to help make some sort of Nashville connection for folks. I was just thinking about Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, all this sort of stuff, and I don't know what people have in their minds of San Quentin, because we're way over here, more than 1,000 miles away. But, talking to a guest that's going to be here later on the show who worked in San Quentin, I'm not sure that I realized that San Quentin has a reputation for being a place that would have programs and be,
Yes.
a little bit looser than a lot of places. Is that right?
Well, it has both reputations.
Okay.
It was a really tough prison, not a great place to be for a long time.
Right.
I don't know what years
It changed in 1989.
that right?
They changed the levels of it, but San Quentin is the oldest prison in California. It was built in 1852, and today the crazy part is California got about 35 prisons. San Quentin is the most, I would say, program-driven prison in California.
Yeah. And one of the things that accounts for that is out of all of the prisons in California, it is closest to a metropolitan area.
Oh, really?
So it's very close to San Francisco, Oakland. And so pre-COVID, there were something like 3,000 volunteers a year going into the prison.
Oh, my.
And the volunteers run a lot of the programs.
Right.
That's what made a huge difference. Now, that's changed some since COVID, but it still has a lot of programs. So now it's really at the forefront in California with programming and rehabilitation.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, so Erlon, what was it like for you to, so season 3, you end up being released, and I guess you probably already at the time planned, we'll keep this thing rolling, but what was it like when the switch flipped and now you're kind of coming in to work on this thing?
I tell you, it was a better feeling.
Well, I guess so. You did have a commute, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so I would say, early on, Nigel, she always speak of the fact that she didn't know whether or not I wanted to still be a part of it.
Oh, really?
Because, being out of the prison system, did I want to still deal with the prison system? But of course, I definitely, this is our baby. I definitely wanted to continue it, and because I see what it does. You know what I'm saying? I see what Ear Hustle is, and I see, my going back in, how that impacts individuals. So of course, I definitely wanted to continue it.
Yeah.
But Erla had been incarcerated for how many years?
I had at that point 21 years.
Yeah, so you can see why, my concern was after spending that much time in prison, when he gets out, is he really going to want to do this work?
Yeah.
Want to do other things? But as he said, it's, our creation. And I was really glad he wanted to keep doing it, obviously. But it was always a question for me. I didn't want to pressure him. But
Yeah.
thank God.
No, it's been a good ride. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Well, did you anticipate, Erlon, that when you started working on this, that it would kind of become a career for you on the outside?
No, so my original, me going to San Quentin, it was because, again, we going back to San Quentin. San Quentin is different than all prisons. I was in another prison on like a 10-month lockdown, and I was watching the Discovery Channel, and San Quentin had the San Quentin film
Program,
the film.
yeah.
It was like the San Quentin film something, and I was like, oh, I got to get there, And then when I got there and went to the media lab, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is the place. They dealing with film, all kind of stuff. So of course, I was like enjoying it.
I guess so. If you're
Not
just
like that, but for a person
Enough.
that
very
has to do
exciting.
for a person that has to do time, when you can be creative in the process, that was the joy of it.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer. My guests are the co-founders and hosts of the Ear Hustle podcast, Nigel Poor and Erlon Woods. Obviously, there's so many hurdles to, producing in a prison. How important was, the administration, the warden, to making it happen initially?
Huge. And I would say it's
Yeah.
the warden, but it's also the public information officer,
that right?
Lieutenant Sam Robinson, who you hear
Right.
on a lot of our episodes. So before we started Ear Hustle, both Erlon and I made a real effort to get to know him and for him to get to know us, like over a 3-year period,
Yeah.
to gain trust with him.
Wait, you're talking 3 years
And-
preceding 2017?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. This was a very long term in the making. It may not seem like that way to people, but
I would say more Nigel than me.
yeah.
Remember,
Okay.
he didn't
All
even
right.
think I
Okay.
talked.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I needed to get the administration to trust me and us by extension, and let them know that that doing an audio project would be okay for the prison,
Right.
right? We weren't trying to tear the prison down. We're trying to tell everyday stories, something that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think without that 3-year workup to it, it would have been very difficult to do the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. So the Lieutenant Robinson in particular was really a champion of our idea. And originally the idea was to do stories just to play inside of prison on
Right.
the closed circuit
Is that
station.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we ended up entering a podcast contest
Yeah.
through Radiotopia. And we ended up winning it. And that's how the podcast actually started playing outside the prison before it played inside the prison.
I see. So the original idea was really to tell stories to each other inside San Quentin. And that
Correct.
And well, the big dream was to play it on all of the stations in all of the prisons in California,
I see.
which are like 34 prisons that have
Yeah.
a closed circuit station. So that was the dream.
That was our big dream, you know.
Wow. Well, it's gotten bigger. What, 85 million downloads, I think, around
Yes.
around the world. Help me understand the censoring and censoring. I mean, I agree. I assume it really is censorship, but like, so the lieutenant has to listen to every episode and kind of says no, not here, not here. I mean, like, how censored is it?
Nope.
It's not at all.
No.
Is that right?
So, we used to do episodes where the public information officer used to be like holding his breath, hoping that his superiors didn't, get on him about some of the content. I think his whole thing was like, look, man, as long as it's not violating or infringing on the safety and security of the institution, I'm good with it. I'm not here to censor what's said every day in the prison. So that was his mission.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that they have no editorial
Control.
Really?
They do listen for things like, for example, that we use the correct acronyms, anything that is going to challenge the safety and security of the institution. So it's an interesting question, but there's a subtlety to it. We know what kinds of stories we can and can't do. Right? We're not going to do, our mission is not to tear down the prison system. Our mission is to tell stories of everyday life in prison, to get people interested in changing the laws in prisons. So we're not going to do a story that's going to, like, a good example would be, how do, illegal drugs get into the prison? Like, that's it's just not everywhere you
contraband.
go. Yeah, contraband, stuff like that.
We leave that for the media.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say that it's censorship, but we know,
you know
we know
not
what
to
our
touch
lane
that
is.
because you're gonna.
Exactly.
Well, tell me though, what is it does seem there's real value. I mean, in hearing people within prison, everything from like what not having intimacies like, or what playing Dungeons and Dragons all day is like, like it's so pedestrian, and yet kind of reminds you like, oh yeah, being in prison, some of it is just kind of everyday life also. What's the value in providing that everyday life component rather than just having stories that are about contraband or about violence or about, other, issues that are tough?
I would think part of it is that most people in society usually feel that a person's life is over once they're in the courtroom and they get convicted and they go to prison. That's it. The story's done. And that's not true. Like you said earlier, prison is technically a microcosm of society. Pretty much everything you do in society, you do in prison. Maybe it's at a smaller level, but it's still the same. You laugh, you joke. It's serious stuff. You might shed tears.
Yeah, you lose family members. You have
How do you
issues.
deal with that? How do you transition from the person you used to be into the person that you were when you were 11 and 12? So it's a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's important for several reasons. One, I really believe in people finding their own inner power and inner creativity. So working with people telling their stories inside San Quentin or prisons in general gives those people an opportunity to understand their lives maybe in a more three-dimensional way, and just to dig into what they have to share. I think that when we find commonalities with other people, we create empathy, and our goal is for people on the outside and people on the inside to see that there are more things in common. And I think when you have that, you can work towards changing laws that you may feel are unfair. I don't know. It's really about building a larger community, and I'm personally interested in everyday stories. If someone starts talking to me about policy or numbers, I can't track it. But if I can hear a story about somebody, you've got my attention.
Yeah. Well,
And
this is not a podcast about policy from what I hear. It's literally about just what's happening every day. It's also heard in 1,300 jails and prisons around the world, including, I think you all have a real count, like 20 in Tennessee, among them Attorney Center Industrial Complex here. How do you know where they're listening and how do they listen?
So in the United States itself, it's about 1,300 institutions and jails that have access to Ear Hustle because of a program called Adovo, or a company called Adovo. Adovo has an app on the tablets that's in pretty much every prison and jail.
I see.
So we're on Adovo, so we're heard there, and then we also heard
Which
in
is
the
what,
UK.
like a restricted kind of internet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tablet that's restricted to like educational stuff. You can do text messaging, you can do video phone calls with your family, email type stuff.
Yeah.
But it's definitely restricted.
Yes. So that's how we've gotten into all these prisons. And it's amazing. And because of that, prisons and jails, because of the tablets and the fact that Ear Hustle is on there for anyone to listen to for free, we hear from so many people across, in prisons across the United States. It's fascinating. And we are actually working on a educational program that will be on the tablets for people to learn how to do storytelling. So there'll be more to come for people inside prisons and jails from us.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we
Very
look forward to
cool.
hearing about it. All right. Erlon and Nigel, co-founders and hosts of Ear Hustle, will stay with us through this break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the Ear Hustle live show coming to the Basement East next week and talk a little more broadly about the prison podcasting movement, which we're touching on here. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We are spending most of this hour hanging with our podcasting friends at Ear Hustle. It was named to Time Magazine's list of the 100 best podcasts of all time. Shameless plug, The Promise by WPLN's Maribel Knight also made that esteemed list. I just had to say, I couldn't get away from it. The concept of Ear Hustle is that, it's primarily produced by people who are behind bars, in partnership with a few who are on the outside, but working directly with them side by side in San Quentin in California and also other prisons now. It's also expanded to a couple of women's prisons, which we'll talk about. But the primary reason we're going deep on Ear Hustle is because the live tour swings through Nashville next week. On Monday, they'll be performing at the Basement East. I'll be there along with a few others here from WPLN. The co-founders and hosts, Erlon Woods and Nigel Poor, are joining from the Bay Area at KQED. Thank you for joining us again. And what is Ear Hustle as a live show?
Okay. Well, first of all, Blake, you're going to be there at the show? Did I hear you say that?
I'm going to be there.
That's so great.
I'm going to be there.
All right. That's exciting. So as a show, we try to change it up. So the podcast is one experience, but the live show is a little bit different. There'll be, we'll have more visuals. So we have animation. Erlon and I and Antoine Williams, who was one of the other co-founders who's since moved on, but he's going to be on the tour with us, are going to do a little, can we call it a little mini play?
Well, we're gonna do a little mini play about the origins.
The origins of Ear Hustle.
How were we able to do it in a
Yes.
prison setting,
Yeah.
and how to get the company of
Don't give me too much.
Radiotopian PRX to agree to it.
We're going to have music, some performances. We have some interactive stuff with the audience. We play clips and we talk about them. And I know it's always weird to say it's a lot of fun because prison obviously is a very heavy, difficult subject, but we try to bring joy and humor and seriousness to all the things we do. So at the live show, we'll that will happen just like it does in an episode. There'll be things that people will find themselves laughing at, sort of scratching their heads, really catching their breath and being startled by. And it's, it's an intimate experience. Audio is always intimate, but we love being with the audience and being able to see people and sort of vibe off of them.
Yeah.
This is our second tour. We had such a great time last year. We've been counting the months until we could do another tour.
Well, and the theme this time is I think about dreams and fantasy, kind of escaping the realities of prison life. Here's a clip. This is Mike, a former Sereno gang member, describing how decades in prison have changed what he actually dreams about.
When I first got arrested, the dreams were me committing violence on people, hurting people. But now that I changed my life and I don't hurt people, the dreams are now me being injured, the physical violence being done to me. Unfortunately, I lived a very violent life. I was a gang member for 30 years, active, so I was involved in a lot of violence. I was a Southerner, Sereno from Los Angeles County. I had like a shot caller position, so I was kind of at the top of the food chain. When I dropped out, all the friends that I once had, now they consider me their enemy, and they want to hurt me. I've had dreams where they're chasing me. I've had dreams where they caught me and they're on top of me. These dreams that I have, they feel so real. But one thing I want to say is, they're not all bad dreams. When I'm having a dream that I'm out in the world, I really believe I'm free in that dream.
A little excerpt that's also from the live show that Ear Hustle's bringing to Nashville. Nigel, Erlon, why the focus on dreams for this tour?
Well, in prison, that's one of the things you do. You imagine being free. You dream about being free. You fantasize about it, and amongst a lot of other things. But that's how we came up with the topics here.
Yeah, and
Theme.
yeah, in this season we've done a few episodes about imagination, dreams, and fantasies, and it's just such a rich topic, and it's a topic that anybody can relate to. We all, dream, fantasize, have memories, and it gives us sort of like for me, it's like sort of the conceptual underpinning to the whole thing that allows us to really get into people's minds and how they think and how they see themselves in the world. And it's very personal. And in prison, there's something called overfamiliarity, where you really are supposed to, as a volunteer or someone who works in prison, have very good boundaries about your relationships with people. And so there's not a lot of personal chit chat. But when you start talking about people's dreams and their memories and their fantasies, you really key into who they are. And I just find that so connective.
Well, it seems like it comes up all the time. I was listening to an episode this morning that was the guy who was about to potentially get out was talking about, like, I just want to be at Disneyland, stand in front of the castle and eat a churro. It's like it just sort of comes up, some sort of
Yes,
fantasy.
could I just say that this is going to be a little teaser.
Okay.
My favorite part of the show focuses, Blake, on just what you talked about, but we're going to go really deep into it. And it's touching and funny.
The
and
live show, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
well, listen.
yes.
Now I guess I'm ready. So we'll put a
Yes.
link to the listening to so you can be prepared, as I am now, for the show next week. As in, that's for listeners, not you, Nigel. I know you're probably very familiar with that episode, Erlon. You too.
Yes.
So let's listen to one more thing. The podcast gives folks kind of this vehicle for their stories and kind of a way to express their feelings and their unique experience. Here's this clip, so simple, but I think you all use it in the live show or have before. It's a reflection from Reggie.
I think it was in 2019, they started giving us citrus. It had been a while since I had peeled the orange. And when I peeled that orange, it lit up the whole cell. I tried to break every ridge without breaking the skin in between. I did my best. Sometimes I succeeded, sometimes I didn't. And pulling it from up under my nails, I just realized how long it had been since I actually peeled an orange and ate an orange.
How long do you think it had been?
Let me see, 2019. Probably like 20 years, a little bit over 20 years. It was like a reminder. It let me know that I'm getting closer to freedom, that I'm getting closer to going home. It was small, it was subtle, but it was something. It gave me a glimmer of hope.
That's a clip from Reggie that's used in the show. Earlonne, I wonder how much of what you all, what's sort of engaging to you that you want to include in Ear Hustle as like the podcast. Is some of it kind of helping people have a new appreciation by people on the outside, have an appreciation for just the beautiful things in life, like peeling an orange and smelling that spray of citrus and peeling it apart and having it hit your tongue. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. I think, one of our missions, of course, is I can go back to, as the Governor Brown said in my commutation package, we just trying to peel back that curtain of secrecy and show what actually happens inside. And it's moments like that, in that situation, you had the California Department of Correction that took fruit from individuals because they felt they were making too much Pruno, which is manufactured alcohol. So they took it, and usually they don't give stuff back, but I guess they had to give it back because everybody needs some citrus in their life.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we got scurvy to worry about over here. So, well, that's beautiful. The live show also includes musical performances, and from the last tour, here's Antoine Williams performing. I think this was a show in Los Angeles.
You see, I never really felt like somebody till somebody told me that I can be somebody. Now I'm somebody who just wanna tell somebody that you somebody to me. Man, how do I reach beyond these walls and prison yards when I'm just...
Antoine Williams performing at one of the Ear Hustle live shows in Los Angeles. Antoine started working with Ear Hustle when he was incarcerated and is now free. How did he find his way to Ear Hustle and then to kind of writing and performing music related to the show?
Yes.
Well, we was all down in the Media Lab. Like I say, Media Lab was one of them places where, the creatives gather.
I see.
Yeah,
You know, and he used to help out when we was with KLW and Holly Kernan and all them. And when we decided to branch off and do our own thing, of course, we snatched him up for sound design because he's a very prolific rapper. He's very good. I'm surprised he hasn't blown up out here, but he definitely can put some words together and do his thing. So
yeah. So it was when we came up with the idea, Earlonne and I wrote out on October 5th, 2015, our ideas for the podcast. And one was we wanted to have really good sound design. And we both were like, yep, Antoine.
Oh, he was already using, audio. There was like audio editing and recording software in the Media Lab?
There was, but he was performing. He was writing music, performing inside the prison when they had events and stuff. And so he was just like, it made total sense. This is the guy we got to bring on as our third.
And that was his passion, poetry, music, making beats. That was his thing,
Making clothes.
Yeah, he even went to the hole for making clothes. Solitary confinement because he was looking like he didn't belong in prison.
Yeah, he's really talented. And so he'll be doing a couple performances at the live show. He's very electrifying.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's an actor. He good.
Beautiful. Well, I kind of want to turn a little bit to Tennessee. I mean, obviously, all your work at this point, I mean, not all, is in California, and have already dealt with a few issues that people incarcerated in the Tennessee prison system are now dealing with. I think it's been about 6 months since the Tennessee Department of Correction began rolling out those tablets you were talking about for in prison. I mean, I think they went system-wide in California maybe several years back or
several
so,
years ago,
right?
yeah.
But they what are these things used for? This is how they would listen to Ear Hustle, for instance, and educational materials.
They could take classes. There's like books on
There's
So
books, yeah.
it's on tablet.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a self help programs. Again, education. Then they can also see movies on there. They can communicate with their families. So
That's the huge thing
yeah,
The
is now you can make
communication.
phone call. Yes,
yes.
emails and phone
So I
calls.
remember when I didn't have that luxury when I was there, but it's funny when I walk into like San Quentin and you walk by somebody, you swear up and down they saying something to you, but they on the tablet talking to their family.
It's
Wow.
so
Are
weird.
you saying
It's
they
like
have the tablet all the time, or there's like
Yeah, it's theirs.
it's their
It's
tablet?
their yeah, they're assigned them. So I think it's a system where mainly the phone companies, give everybody these tablets, you know what I'm saying? To where,
Because
you can
you
just
have to
make those
pay for
calls.
them. You have to pay for
You don't
something.
necessarily have to pay for the call. I think you have to pay for like the pictures and the text
Yeah.
messages and stuff like that.
I
But I don't
see.
want to give people the wrong impression. They are highly regulated. So
Right.
they get turned off at a certain time. You can't
Ah,
make, at least in California, it's not like you can make phone calls and emails 24 hours a day. There's
Right.
times that is on, but you can listen to
I think they
music.
go
You
off
can,
at like 11 p.m.,
yeah.
come back on. As
Yeah. But
far as the communication process, but the movie stuff, I think they can watch and do
yeah.
their thing.
Well, there. You recently did a pair of episodes that were about the emptying out of California's death rows, which is pretty pertinent here in Tennessee. I mean, we have executions scheduled. There's even one scheduled for next week. But the episodes focus mainly on how. Yeah, in fact, I think it's the day after your show because I believe it's August 5th. The episodes focus mainly on how difficult it is for death row inmates to like leave their solitary cells and join the general population. But yeah, what are the why did you think it was important to highlight some of the challenges they face?
Well, I think, it's crazy because when San Quentin is the place that housed the men death row, the only prison that housed it. And, when those guys were out of their cells, they were in handcuffs every time. You know what
Really?
I'm saying? Like when they escort them through the prison, they make everybody turn around because they don't want, somebody to see somebody and maybe try to attack them or whatever the case may be. But they make you turn around. So it was like this thing where the guys were so isolated, 23
Yeah.
hours in their cell, single cell status, so them being back in or being in the general population was totally different to them because now, the officers are not escorting them to their ducats or medical or whatever it is. They're freely going by themselves.
You're saying that
in
being
some
out of death row it truly is life changing. Not just that they won't be executed. It's that the way they're treated in prison is night and day.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
imagine like some of them, been on death row 20, 30, 40
Years.
years and living that very solitary life, really in isolation. And then all of a sudden they're out among other people. It's really overwhelming. And, um, you know, d-
It could have been that way the whole time, but
yeah,
somebody decided to isolate the individuals,
Yeah.
and, Governor Newsom has a moratorium on the death penalty in California, so there is no executions at this moment.
yeah. But, to go back to what Ear Hustle is, I personally was just, again, very interested in everyday life. How does someone make that transition? What has it done to someone to live in isolation like that for so long, regardless of the crime? Again, we don't really talk about people's crimes on our
yeah, I've noticed.
episode.
Yeah.
And I want to be I want to be sensitive to people who are victims of crime for sure. But one thing that's interesting in California is there's a lot of people on death row that have committed the same crimes as people who are on the main line. And so sometimes it's very confusing to understand why someone was given the death penalty over life in prison. Now, of course, there's some people on death row that have done things that are beyond
Heinous or whatever.
beyond any kind of explanation. But it's always curious to me how somebody ends up there.
And usually it's mostly whatever prosecutor it is in those counties. And the crazy part is LA County and Riverside County, which is Southern California, has the most individuals on death row.
What you're saying that it's sort of geographic related to
It's geographical.
the prosecution. Yeah.
San Francisco probably only got about 2 people.
Wow.
So
Well, you have shown precisely why Ear Hustle has become so popular, because you highlight stories that are that are funny, that are entertaining, that are also serious, but illuminate what happens in prison in a way that I just don't think there's another way to do. But it's perhaps inspired another generation of prison podcasts that are to come, and I'm sure you'll be involved in some of that. But you will be here in Nashville at the Basement East on Monday night. I'll see Nigel Poor and Earlonne Woods there. Until then, thank you for being on This Is Nashville.
Thank you.
Definitely appreciate you.
Well, we need to take one last break. We're saying goodbye to Nigel and Earlonne and looking more closely at Tennessee, what kind of opportunities there are for people who were incarcerated to interact with the outside world. Stay with us.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We've been getting to know the team behind the Ear Hustle podcast this hour. It's a show that's really become a tool to kind of put the expertise of people inside the criminal justice system to pretty good use for them and for society. We're going to end the hour, though, looking at a local organization with a somewhat related mission. It's called the Choosing Justice Initiative. You may hear us say CJI here on the air. Started by a former public defender here in Nashville. Erica Duggan is the Director of Education and Holistic Advocacy, and Musa is a court watcher employed by the organization, among other court watchers. Welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. We've talked a lot about San Quentin today, and so, Erica, I can't get away from this without noting that, I mean, you worked there for a long time. Kind of did training in, a master's in social psychology. You did a year of law school, but kind of credited the folks in San Quentin that you worked with for teaching you maybe more than you ever did in a classroom. Why is that?
I started going in San Quentin when I was 21 for 10 years and with the social justice program. Yeah. And I just learned how to be with people and how people can transform themselves in the worst of conditions. And I met some people who were the best fathers who'd been locked up since they were 16, and just the kindness and the capacity for change that people have.
This is not the focus of this segment, but just because you have this experience in San Quentin, and, we learned with Ear Hustle, it's really the environment that's sort of open to rehabilitation in all ways, educating. They have a film program. They obviously have Ear Hustle at San Quentin. It's a place where a lot of that is embraced. How does that compare to Tennessee prisons of that same level security?
I don't see any programs like that in Tennessee prisons across the board.
And what, when you say programs like that, like what do you mean? Like something that is that kind of pushes the boundaries of just like helping somebody get their GED or what?
Yeah, so the program that I went inside for was a social justice group that was founded by professors and inside people. Yeah. And so we co-led each part of it from the inside and the outside. And we were able to do that because of Sam Robinson, the PIO, would allow programs to come in. And we did social justice classes that were aimed around educating people on all different kinds of justice. And without the ability for different places and prisons being in urban areas, right, that makes a difference too, because we could have volunteers and students. But it changes the culture and it changes what people inside, that's where they fight to get to, right? Because you have access to those things and then it helps you for when you come home.
So you're saying Trousdale Turner, well, it's pretty remote. I mean, you're talking about maybe an hour and a half from here. Like it's a little harder to get volunteers to make a trip.
It's harder to do that, yeah, but it's also impossible if the administration at the prisons won't allow it.
Yeah. Do you think there's an openness to that? Like, could obviously, I guess the tablets are now there, so people are hearing, let's say, a podcast like Ear Hustle. But what would it take to start something like that here?
think you have to have more understanding and compassion from the outside for people willing to give up their time to go inside. But you also have to have the administration be willing to let people in and not have the assumption that people are coming in to bring bad things or to do bad things, that they're really just coming in there to do the normal things that people do on the outside and to treat people like human beings.
Well, back to the Choosing Justice initiative, the missions to reform indigent defense in Tennessee. So these are folks who might need a public defender otherwise. And as part of that reform, you employ court watchers like Musa. What is a court watcher for folks who need to understand what that role might be?
So what Musa has been a part of, was a summer court watch campaign that we did kind of to kick off. And the goal is to increase the transparency in the court system, but with a focus on getting the entire community involved, but specifically people who've been there themselves.
Yeah.
Because their lived experience is important.
Yeah. So Musa, what are you looking for when you're observing in court? What are you taking notes on?
Well, I take notes on the judges, the lawyers, and the DAs to see if they are they taking if they're violating anybody's rights, or are they actually appointing them in the correct way? Do they care about these people?
And what would you see that I might not, or just anybody might not? You don't have to pick on me.
I would say due process.
Yeah.
So your rights might get violated because you might not know them.
Well, I'm sure that happens all the time.
All the time.
What do you see? Can you give me an example that would be helpful to illustrate this point, that a right that gets violated that people kind of just live with because they didn't know any better? Maybe their public defender didn't step up.
I'd say the smallest one is probably being the way you get sworn in.
Okay.
So you're not supposed to get sworn in with like 3 other people at the same time.
All right.
Your case might be different from the other 2 people that you are going in front of. Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that they sort of have kind of put their hand up and cross their heart or whatever you have to do. They might do it as a batch group instead of doing one by one. Mm-hmm. Why does that matter though?
I think there's lots of reasons why it matters, right? Because if that one right is violated, then how many other rights also get violated, right? I mean, I think one of the things that happens to a lot of people is their court-appointed lawyer only meets with them in court. They never meet with them when they're still in jail. And so then that results in more people pleading, and they're pleading in a way that's violating their rights, but they don't even know it.
So you're saying in these small things, like being sworn in as a group, which is not supposed to happen, when you say, we noted that happened 5 times today in court, it kind of keeps the court officials maybe on their toes to make sure they're following their processes in other ways also?
In so many words, yes.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer. We're talking about the Choosing Justice initiative in Nashville that employs people like Musa who spent some time in prison to also be court watchers. So in Nashville, what might you have seen, Musa, in a courtroom that you sort of noted that might surprise people who don't watch as closely as you?
Like we hinted on before, not being able to talk to my lawyer prior to the case or the court date and stuff like that.
So you're supposed to have spoken with your attorney, or just have the opportunity to? How's it supposed to go, and how does it often go wrong?
A lot of times, I go to court, I don't talk to my lawyer until the day of court, and now we're discussing.
Oh, they're out in the hallway, just sort of like, hey, this is what's going to happen. You're going to plead
we're
this.
In the courtroom.
You're in the courtroom. They haven't really had a conversation until that very moment.
That very moment.
How do you pick up on that?
Well, if me and my lawyer are able to talk and see what we're going to do, that's when we talk.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys should be able to, let's figure out what we're going to do and take a deal, or not take a deal, but let's fight this before we go there.
I see.
9 times out of 10, a lot of these people aren't doing that until the day of court or they're finna go in front of the
While
judge.
they're standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And is that just because the public defender has too many cases that they're working on, no time kind of a thing?
That's the biggest thing.
Well, how do you notice that in the moment that they haven't even talked about this before?
You can see the face,
I see.
the faces of the person who's coming out for the court date.
Yeah.
And I would say also it's not necessarily the public defender, it's court-appointed attorneys. And so they're
okay.
attorneys that the state pays directly,
Yep.
and they don't work for the public defender's office. And so, like, there's a list of attorneys that we watch for consistently because they have such a bad reputation.
So, Erica, how do you all take this information that comes from your team of court watchers and use it in a productive way?
So I think Musa's a part of that, right? Like, they're shaping what we do with it and how we move forward.
Is that right?
Yeah. Like, what do they want to do with it? What have we seen that this summer that's important to them? What are some of the ways that we move forward? Is it peer support, like supporting people who are going through the system and their families in that way? Is it watching the attorneys and the system that we know is failing and calling that out more ways? Is it influencing the judicial elections or appointments that are coming up by increasing the transparency and talking to judges and making that public and getting more of the community involved?
Yeah. So you're saying that it's certainly not that in the moment you would step up and say because you're just observing what you're in the. I'm not sure if it's called the gallery.
It is the gallery, yes. And so we have forms and that we change them and people take notes and we collect them all. And so we have actual data from it. But we also meet weekly and we have discussions, right, about where do we go from here? What did we see? Like, what's most important to y'all as people who have been through it?
Yeah. Are there any sort of trends from the last few, I guess you said this is a summer program, so it's kind of been going on a few weeks. Anything that is like rising to the surface?
I think seeing the same lawyers and seeing
the court-appointed lawyers, seeing the same lawyers do the same things.
Do the same things across the board in all of the criminal court divisions.
Is there a way to raise concerns with the court on an issue like that, like an appointed attorney kind of not fulfilling the duties as you think they're supposed to be fulfilled?
I think some of it has been raised some in the news before. I think judges are aware they don't have attorneys to appoint for cases. So it's a statewide issue, really.
Yeah.
So it's not new.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's the first time as somebody who hasn't been locked up myself, but has lots of family members who have, that being involved with it with other people who are directly impacted by it, it changes it and it helps to like shift some of the power some.
Musa, how does it feel to go into a courtroom kind of in the gallery and kind of in a professional position rather than how you had been in there before?
When I first started, I was nervous. I was like, now I'm finna go back to court again.
Oh, it almost feels like you are the subject.
Right. But sitting on the other side and you seeing like, okay, this person, like I'm noticing the same things that happen to me. So that's why I feel like, okay, I should keep doing this more and more. So me coming back doing it repetitively, I feel like I might be doing some changing coming doing this.
Doing some changing about just feeling like you have a place in that courtroom and something helpful to provide, or you mean something more internal than that?
I feel like I'm changing. Well, I'm trying to change my community, help my community out.
How did you get involved in the first place? How did you hear about the program?
So I am currently at Dismas House.
Yep.
And there was a few guys who are already, when I came into Dismas House, there was a few guys already going to court watch, and they told me about it. And that's how I got into it.
How many folks are doing the court watching right now?
It's like, when we first started, it was like 9 people. Now I think we're up to like 25 people. Maybe.
25 consistently. I think we've had up to 40 at one point.
Wow. Well, what does it? What do folks who've had the experience? What do they bring to this, Erica? That like if you just had a first year law student doing the same thing might not.
I think what Musa said, right? He sees the same things that happen to him. He knows how it works because he's been through it, and so you see that. You have your own personal experiences and the personal experiences of everybody else around you who's in jail or in prison, and you understand it. and then you want to do something because you don't want the same thing to be happening to other people, like the same things that happen to you.
Yeah.
And I think consistently when I'm in the court with court watchers who've been through it, that's what they say over and over, right?
Yeah. Musa, what's your hope for kind of what comes after your time as court watcher? I assume court watcher is not a indefinite thing. Is there a way to kind of use that experience to go on?
Well, as far as connected to court watch, I want to get the word out there. I mean, to more people to understand, like, okay, a lot of these guys' rights are getting violated. So, hey, maybe we should go in and understand the schematics of it, or we should learn the terms when you're going into court, so you know that you won't go in there blindly, basically.
You're saying you're like a passion point might be more on the educational side of folks who are stepping in front of the judge.
Right.
Well, this is Musa and Erica Duggan of the Choosing Justice Initiative here in Nashville, which uses the lived experience of people getting out of prison to be court watchers, 25 of them now watching court proceedings. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
We also got to know the team behind the Ear Hustle podcast today. Their live shows Monday night at the Basement East. Tickets still available, I believe. So thank you to Erlon and Nigel for that. Thanks for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini, directed by Tasha A.F. Limley. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get podcasts. You can also, just try it, ask a smart speaker to play the latest episode of This Is Nashville. Conversation doesn't have to end here. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message. We listen to them. Got one the other day, 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Blue Sky and Instagram and X at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.